Hey everyone, it's Jeremy Smith with Ascent. We're here with our friend Dr. Luke Bobo. Dr. Bobo is the department chair and associate professor of Christian ministry studies here at Lindenwood University. And Luke, you at our last camp, you taught what I would call a thought-provoking class. If not a controversial class on echoes of Eden in film, in literature, and music.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that talk, Luke.
Well, basically, what I tried to convey to the students was the thought that we can find good things and cultural artifacts like music, film, and literature. And it's our job as Christians to plumb beneath the surface and look for those things that we can affirm. And thus the name Echoes of Eden, things that are good and noble and pure and right. We can find those things in film, art, and music. And this comes under the category of cultural hermeneutics, interpreting things in culture.
Yes, yes. And we felt like this particular class, this particular lecture was really important because I think, Luke, and maybe you agree, our tendency as Christians is to sort of hunker down in our Christian ghettos and to build high walls and to kind of, baptize things like film and music and literature and Christian terminology, and the next thing you know, we have no idea what the culture is talking about or the stories that they're telling. So we thought this was really important. So tell us a little bit about Acts 17 and Paul's approach to taking, in that case, poetry or literature and using that as a springboard to talk about the gospel and Jesus.
Yeah, we can end the discussion now by saying Jesus was someone that knew his culture, and he entered a culture. He engaged with that culture to put the gospel in a accessible language so people can understand. But of course, we're not Jesus. But then we turn to the next best person. That's the Apostle Paul. It's clear from Acts 17 that the Apostle Paul knew the terrain in Athens. He knew the literature terrain. He knew the religious terrain. And why did he take the time to understand their poets, their literature, so that he could affirm? In fact, he says in Acts 17, I'm paraphrasing here, even your own poets have said this. So he is actually affirming some good things their poets have said. And he uses that, as you have said, as a springboard to contextualize the gospel and to make the gospel accessible. And you would notice in Acts 17, Paul doesn't use a lot of Christian language. And so that frees us up to not use Christian language as we talk to unbelievers. And in fact, many theologians say Paul failed in Acts 17 on Mars Hill because he didn't use a lot of Christian language. But he does preach the gospel by couching it in a language that his hearers can understand. But that takes doing some homework. And God has called us to an American culture, and we need to understand this culture to make the gospel contextual. And let's face it, we can understand a lot about this culture by reading the literature, the film, or looking at film, listening to the music of our day, of our culture.
I agree wholeheartedly. However, I know how students think.
Sure.
So my follow-up question would be, Dr. Bobo, what do you say to the student that catches hold of this and says, oh, wonderful, so what you're saying then, Luke, is that I should perhaps pick up an X-rated magazine and I should find the cultural goods in here so I can contextualize the gospel to my non-Christian friends that spend a lot of time reading X-rated materials and magazines.
Right.
What do you say to that student?
Well, I would just quote what Peter wrote his audience in 1 Peter, and that is, Peter says to his audience there, do not use your Christian freedom as a cover-up or a ruse for evil. And I would say to that young man or that young lady, you need to be very careful. You're walking a very tight line here, and where this could potentially lead you on a slippery slope of sin. So, in other words, God calls us to be wise and discerning, and we do that by understanding ourselves very well. Mm-hmm. We all have trigger points that can lead us into sin, and so I would say that to that young man or young lady.
Well said. Luke, you know that Faith Ascent is a ministry that believes it's very important to train young Christians in apologetics before they leave home.
Sure.
And you're one of our speakers, you're a friend of the ministry, and I know that you agree with that, but in your own words, could you tell maybe our parents and our students and our friends why you believe that's important?
Well, as someone who works on a college campus, I see this constantly from year to year. That is, you get students who come from Christian homes who have you might say, a very surface understanding of the gospel. And they have this newfound freedom. And that leads to this stat. It's said that clearly 1/3 of students leaving Christian homes who come to college abandon their faith. And let's face it, the university is like a microcosm of the world. So students will be introduced to a variety of worldviews that go counter to what they believe. And if they don't have a firm understanding of what they believe and how to explain what they believe, then they can become part of that 1/3 of losing their faith or abandoning their faith. So that's why I think it's vitally important for young people to have that training in apologetics as early as elementary school. Let's put it this way, while it's still in the crib.
Yeah.
So the earlier the better.
Yeah.
In my view.
And the training is a lifelong endeavor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And parents have that call from the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 through 9 tells us as parents to train our kids to be obsessed with that, to be diligent in teaching our kids about the culture, about apologetics, about the word, how to integrate all three of those. So absolutely, it's very, very important.
We agree. Well, Dr. Bobo, thank you very much for your time. You guys, if you're interested in Faith Ascent Base Camp and our seminars and our DVDs, you can check us out online, www.faithascent.com. Until next time.
Peace out.
I
cough go in it?
Oh my gosh!
Thanks for hacking into the camera.
I almost had a
Tara.
coughing fit. I had to keep myself.
That was the best part of the whole interview, and you're just
Stop
coughing and coughing.
That makes it real. Huh?
You want to watch it real quick?
No.
Okay.
I don't like looking at my cell phone.
Are you serious?
I look like a chipmunk.
I would disagree with that, but hey.